Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Both Mom and I are really excited that you can join us for another week. And we're super excited because we're welcoming back Judy Wilkins-Smith with us. She's been on a couple of podcasts with us now. And so we thought we'll start off talking kind of about mothers because it's just after Mother's Day and we'll kind of see where this conversation leads us to. So welcome back, Judy. We're really excited to have you on the podcast with us.
Thank you. It's lovely to be back with you, and I'm warmer than you are.
Yeah, just not a bad thing, but we're happy because we're plus 20, and for us that's pretty good.
Yeah. Anything under about 23, I'm very cold.
Yeah, I
But
like 23.
yeah, it's kind of the climate, but you get used to it after a while. So
Yeah.
Please keep it there.
okay, that's a deal. We
People
will.
get people here start wearing their shorts when it's plus 10.
I know we think it's very funny, but we politely won't say anything about it.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so we'll get into the mothers and how that affects us. And so do we, I guess, and I'm interested in this because this is my mother, and so I'm interested to hear what can I inherit from her or not.
Oh, a lot, a lot. You inherit a lot from your mom. I often hear people say, I open my mouth and out comes my mother. So a lot. You can inherit, of course, physical attributes, but emotional DNA, your patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions. What do you feel about relationships? How do you feel about money? What do you feel about your career? A lot of those come from mom and mom's mom and mom's 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 mom, and it gets passed down the line. So there's a terrific amount that you can inherit from your mom. And you can inherit mother-daughter relationships. In fact, we were looking the other day, and it's so interesting. My great great grandmother was close to her mother. Her daughter was close to her. Her daughter was close to her. My mom was close to her mom. I'm close. My daughter, who is adopted, is very close to me. So
Very
it's
cool.
that thing of not just nature, but also nurture. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe that because mom and I, especially, well, not especially, but just from even being young, we were very, very close. Through my teenagers, I'm pretty sure I drove her a little crazy, but even then, still, she was my rock, right? Because even when
Right.
I was going through crisis or having my teenage stuff, I could go to her and talk to her. She was like my best friend at that point. So
Right.
and we're now raising our granddaughter, and we tend to be close, although we butt heads quite a lot, which I didn't do
Sounds
as
like you
much
and your
with
mom.
my
Yes, exactly.
mom. So is there things then if I let's just say that I inherited from her that I didn't like, is that something like some kind of thought pattern or that is there a
Actually,
way to change it?
yeah, and it's a gift because if you've got something, so the gift for you is that you are close to mom. But if there's something that you don't like, that's a gift too, because it's a provocation to change. So, all in all, mom winds up giving you gifts one way or the other. And so, the way to change that is to look at that and say, watch me as I do it differently. I'm going to do this differently. And so, yeah, it's a gift one way or the other. And we don't have to take everything. In fact, our mothers don't want us to take everything, right, Mom?
Right.
Um, they don't
That's
want
right.
us to take everything, but yes, there are things that you would love to take and other things that it's time to change.
Mhm. And I think
Mhm.
we've seen that even in the way people raise their kids, right? Like what was good, say when my mom was raising me or her mom was raising her, has really come and changed totally
Oof.
different from how children are being parented today. Good or bad, I don't know because, sometimes I think it's how you do it. And if it works for you, that's great. But it's nice to know, especially if you came from a situation that you weren't happy with, that you have that choice to change things to do differently.
Thanks to your mom. Always thanks to your mom. You did well, thanks to mom. You do not so well, but decide to change that, thanks to mom. In fact, it's mom and dad, but of course we're talking about mom. But I see people who are CEOs and they say, I worked my tail off and my mother still doesn't see me. Well, aren't you lucky? She provoked you to do that. So
Yeah.
thanks, mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what if, like for our case, we have a good relationship, but what if you don't have a good relationship with your mother?
One of the things to do is go and look at what was her relationship like with her mom. If it was the same, well, you've got a pattern going and an opportunity to change that. And sometimes, let's face it, I'm very lucky like you. I have a very close relationship with my mom. But there are some children and mothers out there who really struggle because there are difficult dynamics.
Mhm.
And when those dynamics are difficult, what do we do? Exactly what we said before. Have a look at what your mom gave you. It doesn't matter if all she could give you was a life. If she gave you life, take that. But look
Right.
at something good that you can take and really kind of sew that into the fabric of who you are. The other thing, of course, is even if you struggle with your mom, people will say to me, I don't want to be near my mother, she's toxic. Well, here's the problem. If you cut off from your mom or you reject her, you also reject one half of your emotional DNA. Who am I? Why am I? Where am I? It comes from mom and comes from dad. So you're cutting off all insights and knowledge that come from that one side when you shut them down. So it's not about you being good or bad. It's about, hey, there's stuff there that you can really use and learn.
Right.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it does make sense. And I think, I think there's always learning lessons too in our life, right? Regardless of how we're parented or who we're parented by. And we
right.
always have that free will in our own self to be able to change those things that we don't like. So yeah,
Oh, say that again, please, because everybody thinks that they're a victim of their mothers and they are or fathers. They are so not. At some stage, you're making choices. So then it's time to stop.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, you only get so many years of pass on blaming mom before that's old.
That's
100%,
true.
because I think at
That's
some
true.
point it does flip back to us, and we do have to say, okay, this is not okay, and I don't accept that this is the way I'm going to live my life,
Right.
Mhm.
not necessarily even, whatever they went through in their life, but you can say, this isn't the way that I choose to live my life, especially as an adult, right?
Right.
Mhm.
I, yeah, it frustrates me sometimes when I hear blame, sometimes towards parents, right? Depends,
Oh, it frustrates me
but
too
some
because
of them.
you have choice. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had people who say to me, my mother was a narcissist, there was no place for me. Really? Really? Okay, that may fly until you're about 16. After that, really? No.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes there are mothers who have to be taken care of, which is difficult. That is very difficult for a child because you reverse roles, which means that mom becomes too small and you become too big, and it doesn't work for either of you.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is very true. And
We understand that too. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to be learned. And I think sometimes through conflicted relationships, we have these different things that we can learn as well. So I think that's, when we look at it coming from a different way of looking at it, kind of looking at it as an observer as opposed to, and which is very hard to look at things as an observer as opposed to, I'm in the middle of this and my mother's driving me nuts, or she, has done these things that, drive me crazy, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Right. There are ways to talk about it and talk to each other. And sometimes it is difficult. Sometimes you get moms who are really difficult. I go back to what was their childhood like? Where did they come from? We don't just become difficult or be difficult. We become that way over time. But there's a
Right.
trigger for that. So what was the trigger?
Right.
And I think then also for a mom, I sit in the mom's shoes and I go, because I've had clients like this. Well, she didn't get on with her parents, and I don't get on with her either. And I'm like, wow, imagine being that mom and getting up every morning and knowing my parents didn't think I was worth much. My children, that's a hard, hard road to walk.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So is
Yeah.
there a way that you can, I guess, I don't know, mend, I don't want to say mend fences because that's not what I'm thinking, but kind of put your relationship back together if you've had sort of either a toxic relationship or a bad relationship with your parent and you're willing to do that? Is there some way to kind of move forward with that?
I think one of the things to recognize is that your relationship with your mother has nothing to do with her relationship with you. And a lot of people don't get it when I say that at first. You could have a perfectly fine relationship with her, even if she's struggling with you. So, what I say to people is when you want to put it back together, find the one thing that makes mom mom for you. I don't care if it's baking cookies. I don't care if it's picking the kids up. I don't care if it's making tea. It doesn't matter what it is. Give her her place. Because when you can give mom her place, you can take your place. And that puts you both into correct order, which then allows for that relationship to start feeling like it has direction.
Mhm.
So that is a very helpful first one. Um, I had somebody recently, and I thought it was incredibly sweet. This person had struggled with her mother for a very long time, and we worked, and then she said to me when we met again, I was able to tell my mom for the first time, you're a good mother. And she said it changed everything. Yeah, because imagine finally being validated. It's a relationship with a mother and a daughter is a two-way street. It's not just
Hmm.
about mom being mom and giving you what you need. It's a two-way street. And that really struck me. And I think the other thing is to remember is that love isn't just something that happens. It is an act of will. So what are you willing to do to create that love?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And so then is it different in a mother-daughter relationship to a mother-son relationship?
It can be. You have so many different variations, but a mother-son relationship, well, no, in yeah, there is one actually, one dynamic. It's called a mama's boy. And a mama's boy is, we all know what the mama's boy is, but here's the problem with a mama's boy. Often the mama's boys had to step in when dad stepped out, either emotionally or physically, and he becomes the surrogate spouse, which creates a problem because if he wants to have a girlfriend or get married, well, now he's kind of deserting the relationship here unless that gets made or remade correctly. And so what you'll hear is you'll hear a lot of women who are married to a mama's boy going, it's useless. I may need him. His mother goes ding ding with a bell and there he goes. Well, yeah, because he hasn't completed his relationship with dad. He's actually in relationship with his mom, and you're the third relationship, not the first. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is that one. But a boy who can either give his father his place, well, which you want to do even if you don't know your dad, and take his own place can be very close to his mom in beautiful ways.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
true.
we were really lucky because like mom raised us as a single mother. And so, and I do have a brother, but I find like he's not a mama's boy. Like he loves his mom, but in a healthy way, right? So
Right.
I think that's a good thing to see that even though she was a single parent, she kept that separate and was like, no, you're my children.
That's a very powerful thing for a
Yeah.
mom to do. It really is. It allows you to be children and her to stay mom. And it's probably the biggest gift she could ever give you is you're the kids, I'm the mom. It's a big deal. A mom who does that, yeah, she needs to be hugged a lot.
Thanks. I just felt raising them that they needed to be independent because
Yeah.
someday I wouldn't be there. And it didn't matter if it was then that I wasn't going to be there because of sickness or whatever. or later in life. But each way, they had to be independent enough that I knew that they were going to be okay should something come that way, right? Especially when you're just the one parent,
Yep.
So,
So
you know,
interesting to watch mothers do that. I see it quite often, probably because there are more single moms than single dads, but I do see it where mothers look at it and go, Mm-mm, you're not going to have the bump I had. Let's just make sure you're independent and you're safe. And they do a really good job of having kids who can function well in.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
yeah, yeah.
Because I think
Sometimes,
family dynamics are so
And
funny
of,
always.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but of course it's also interesting because if dad wasn't there, then you will sometimes find that there's a repetition of that pattern with one of either you or your brother not being there or one of your children not being there.
Hmm.
And they're
True.
actually pointing to the missing one.
Yeah, yeah. My son doesn't live near us; he's farther away, but we still communicate lots. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about missing. So
Oh,
he's
oh,
around and still there, but you can get missings. So if dad went missing, you may have a child or a grandchild who goes missing. Yeah,
okay. Mm,
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
yeah.
I know with my brother, like we had a few years where he was at certain points of his life too, that he was more distant from you guys, had a more like you always loved and always talked and things, but you had that little bit of a time where you didn't necessarily talk as much to each other. So yeah, maybe he, in that aspect, he was probably figuring it out in his head, but fast forward to now and the relation has built up, right? So on both parts, it was like, no, we want to have this relationship and change this
Right.
dynamic.
But so can I just touch in because I heard you say I'm raising my granddaughter.
Mhm.
There are two missing parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
her
they
mom
go,
is still around, but yeah, but yes, my husband and I are raising her. So
so mom is around and you're raising them. So as a mom, you want to make sure that she still has a little bit of that role at stages or the mom role can go missing there.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense because I think she more wrestles with that sometimes because, right? I got this parent, and I kind of came in later, so her my husband's first wife, which was her grandma, right? I'm her step grandma. So she raised her. So really, in essence, it's almost like all of a sudden she was like, boom, I have three moms. And
Hmm.
so there's a lot of things that I think she wrestles with in her mind about that. I haven't actually had that
Well,
conversation.
actually, that's an easy one. So let me help you with that one. That's super easy. She's lucky. She
she
has
is.
more, not less. And all she's got to remember is first comes my biological mom, because that is where I came from.
100%.
And then as a sequence of time, then comes my other grandma. And then comes this grandma. And if each of you take your place and none disses or is jealous of the other, it'll flow quite beautifully and she gets to know that. And if she struggles at all, then it's to say to her, hey, what's good about your mom? Because when you could do that, she also knows what's good about her
Mhm.
because half of her comes from mom. So what is good about your mom that is also good about you?
Yeah, that's the truth. No, I
I
always
like
say that
that.
to her.
Sorry,
Go
go ahead.
ahead. I say that to Sasha just sometimes too, because it's sort of like, you know, forgive your mom for what happened in the past, because it's not the past, it's the present. So let it be. Let's let it be. And she couldn't help what she went through either. And she's pretty good about that, actually.
And
Yeah.
she's got bonuses all over, and then she's got you as well. So she's got actually like four moms. I mean, she has a plethora of moms.
She
She
does.
does.
She probably like, okay, well, you all get off my case,
Right?
please. Enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, enough from all of you.
No, she's
Well,
very lucky.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I just think that family dynamics are so funny. And I do think that, and actually, I had a conversation with my grandma because she was talking to me about different families. And I'm like, okay, you know what, grandma? Everybody has choice. Everybody makes their choice of how they want to live their life. And to what extent? Do they want it to be a good life or do they not want it to be a good life? And that's their choice. And there's nothing we
Very
can,
much.
as the people that love them, per se, because they have that free will, right?
Right.
And once you become, like you said, like 16, 17, 18, depending on the person, it flips back to you where you want to be going in life.
So they have free will, except they don't, but they do. So in
Right.
systemic work, you've got free will, but you're also bound to the system. Whether you fancy it or not, you don't get to unbind from your family system. And that means that you inherit all of those emotional DNA patterns, the patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions. So
Right.
sometimes what we think are our thoughts or feelings or actions are not. They began in the mouths and the bodies of our ancestors, and we're just repeating them. So unless you actually know what's in there and what you're taking on, you could think you've got free will all day long. Good luck. No, you don't. You're
I
reacting
realize
to the
that.
system and wondering why. Yeah,
And so then how does a person know this? Like, I know we've kind of touched on this before, but can you tell
right.
people that are maybe tuning in, like, how do you know it's either yours or not yours?
So of course it's always yours, but not yours. But the way that you know that it didn't start out from you is you'll suddenly have almost an irrational explosion, an irrational reaction to something that's perfectly simple and go, what's that? Or you're very dogmatic about something and nobody can move you. So it's the places where you're dogmatic, irrational, idiosyncratic. When you look at those, very often, if you go back in the system, you'll see, oh, that's why. That was my grandmother who was like that, or my grandfather, or this was my mom, or you will see that, and it pops up in everything, everywhere. So when you have those pieces that pop up and you go, what's this? Go looking because it's there. It's actually pointing you in that direction.
True. So if something's going on in your family with your mother, let's say, and you sort of break the chain of events of how it was going on, sort of thing, you say, that's not happening anymore, that's not coming down the linkage of my children. Um, so when you do that, you're still connected from some of the things that you've learned from them already, but you can separate that and still run in your own vein, correct? Okay.
Absolutely. You can separate that, but what you also want to do quite often is acknowledge what is. In other words, there's this pattern that's here. Okay,
Right.
I want to change that pattern. But there's no harm in thank you, pattern, for having got me this far. Now it's time to do something different. Because
Perfect.
now
Yeah.
you're giving the early pattern respect and its place. And in systems, everything has to have its place. And you're
Right.
also becoming the change agent and doing something a little different.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's never in conflict. It really isn't.
It's
That's
just
nice to
movement.
hear.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, it is nice to hear. So you just move in a different direction, even though you still have
You,
some of the stuff from the
you move
past.
in a different direction with thanks to what came before you.
Yeah, with gratitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Gratitude is one of my favorite things, by the way, I have to say. Gratitude is just one of the most underspoken about. I mean, underspoken about and most under appreciated emotions. And yet gratitude's what makes everything hum and sing. Um, what was I reading the other day? You cannot stay grateful and resistant at the same time. And you cannot stay grateful and unfocused at the same time. So, okay, gratitude is an amazing creature. Gratitude also allows us to move beyond the dogmatic points of view that we tend to hold.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I have a grateful practice I do every night before I go to bed. And I'm not gonna lie, I usually journal, but sometimes if I've just like had a day and I'm running off my feet and you're just bag tired and I get into bed, then I just do it in my mind, right? Like all the things that I'm still grateful
Right.
because it still holds justice to being grateful, whether I journal it or not. But I do prefer to journal, but that's just who I am because I
Yeah,
like
yeah, and
paper.
it's an amazing thing because I can remember having a particularly day, the one day, and thinking, I have got to find something to be grateful for. So I lay down in bed and I was thinking about, okay, so what can I be grateful for today? And I got to 51 and I thought, what is your problem? You had 51 things go right with your day. What are we doing here? So, yeah, it's really going back to it's possible to change that pattern all the time. I have more of a grateful practice when I wake up, I will say, because I don't like to start the day without being grateful
Mhm.
and ready to run.
Right.
And I think that's a great way, right? Because I think as long as you have gratitude is the biggest thing, right? Is because I do agree with you. So often our day is going crappy and we're just like, but often we just let that train derail instead of focusing back in. Because I think even then, if we just sat for a moment and took a couple of deep breaths and been like, you know, I'm so thankful for whatever, just being alive, really,
Truly thankful, truly thankful.
truly
Because
Yeah.
I had
thankful.
someone today, I laughed because I was talking about gratitude and I said, when you're truly grateful, it changes everything. They went, fine, I'm grateful. I said, no, that is not truly grateful. Truly grateful, people, truly grateful.
Yeah. I did a project, so I heard it somewhere and it was like for a month you have to write 10 things every day that you're grateful for, but you can't repeat them.
Oh, I like that.
So it makes your head just have to think, right? Like I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful that, I can breathe. I'm grateful that the sun was shining today. I'm grateful that it rained if you want rain. Like, there's so many different things that we just, I'm grateful I got to spend time with my mom. I'm, grateful I get to interview wonderful people. Like, whatever it is, you can just take that little bit of time and do that. It just really stretches your mind of how much we truly have to be grateful for in life.
Yeah, and I actually I think one of the funniest ones for me was I was in a room with executives and we were talking and this guy was exploding, the CEO. I'm not grateful for this and I'm not grateful for that. And he looked at me and he said to me, do not tell me to find one thing to be grateful for today. I am not grateful for anything. And I looked at him and I said to him, how many people get to be in your position as CEO of a company like this? And he went, I give up. I'm grateful.
That's good. That's really good.
I love it. Because it's just a mindset change, right? Like you're just flipping the switch of the different things, right? And I just find that like even today it was funny because we were in this course and it was boring and I was like, oh, insert all this information I don't really care about. I just want to get to the end and whatever. I was just feeling overwhelmed. Someone's like, I forget what they said, but they just kind of spun it and I was just like, you're so positive. Okay, I'm going to try to go back in with a better attitude, right? Like, okay, how lucky am I that my employment offers these kind of things that I get to go learn these things,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. That people would love to go to. And now we're sitting here going, yep,
Yeah.
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 What are some other things that you think that we could do to bring either grateful practices or things just to bring more love and good things into our lives?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. Of course, mom is always one. What am I grateful to my mom for? That I would fill pages, so I'm grateful for that. But even things like, we so often rush through life, and I have two Siamese kitties. The one is sitting over to the side there. And every morning, and I'm so grateful for her because she starts my day off. Every morning, I get a kiss on the nose. And then when I've got everything going, then I've got to first sit with her for about 5 minutes. And then I'll go to the top of the stairs and I say to her, you come in? And then she stands there and she looks at me and she runs all the way down. And then she comes into my office and she doesn't move until I go out. So she's doing hard work. And I'm grateful for a little furry friend who cares enough to come spend the day with me every day. I'm very lucky. So it's just looking around you and looking at what you have, what you are, what you feel. I look at people, we have people at the moment, you go through some of those periods in life.
Mm.
We have people at the moment who have mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers who are really ill. And I look at them and I go, thank you, God. I'm so grateful. I am so grateful. So grateful. Because every day really is a gift, and we should pay attention to that. Every day
Yeah.
is a gift.
Yeah.
There are so many people who don't get to get up with a smile on their face, who don't get to get up pain-free or get out of a hospital bed. When you can and you do, be grateful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
true.
agree with you.
Sometimes you have to remind them too. My mother's quite an age. When I talk to her, sometimes she's quite down, and I say to her, like, you should be happy, Mom. Like, you're still pretty healthy, and you're 92. And
Oh, I
things
love
like
it.
that. How lucky are you? Because other people couldn't even get up and out of bed at your age, or they're not still here. Either way,
Yeah.
just sort of remind her, because because she's alone. I think sometimes they get in that front, right?
Oh,
So,
yes,
so,
absolutely.
so when you're talking to her, like when I'm talking to her, to say, be grateful, Mom. Aren't you happy today? you know, just to see, just to change her way of thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I have a mom who's 88 and her
Nice.
sister is 93. And so,
Wow.
no, actually, mom's 89, sorry, and her sister's 93. And I was listening the other day because she calls her every day on WhatsApp because my aunt lives in South Africa. And she said to my aunt, how are you today? And my aunt was like, and she said, you're not getting off the phone until you tell me four things that you're happy about and grateful for today. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's awesome. I
go,
need to do
mom,
that.
you
I
go.
need to do that.
Yeah. And she does that every day. No, 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 no. We're not saying goodbye. You did not give me four things that were good today. So what was good
Very
today?
nice.
Yep. And I love that. That it's also buddying each other through that. And
Yes.
asking, hey, what are you grateful for today?
Hmm.
Okay, I need to think. Yeah.
I think it'd be good if we all did a little bit more of that, right? Because we can all use that reminder of, especially when we're going through things, that even though there's all this turmoil or whatever we're up against in our lives, because life happens,
Yep.
we still have things to be grateful for at the end of the day. So
Mhm.
I think it would
Absolutely.
be so handy if people would just say to someone, in some way would reach out to them and be like, so, hey, blah, blah, what are you happy for today?
Exactly.
I
Yeah. I
often,
mean, I just have to look at the news and I'm grateful.
That's the truth.
yeah, I don't watch the news for that reason,
Not
but
too
No, I
much.
watch as little of it as possible, but I tell you what, I see some of those and I'm like, I'm happy. I'm
right?
grateful.
I'm grateful that I don't watch the news because you still get it from here and there. And if I'm really that interested, I'll go find out more. But
Yeah.
I choose not to because there's just so much negativity, is what I find.
That's what's, yeah, that's what's beautiful about what's happening at the moment. Doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Catholic, non-Catholic, it doesn't matter. Watching 30,000 people standing in the square just to see, is there
The
white
smoke.
smoke tonight? It's amazing to watch.
No
It's
kidding.
amazing to watch.
Yeah.
I agree. I was reading that on the internet this morning, and I thought, that's wild how many people will do that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful at the
I
same
think
time.
I would because I was looking at it. It's a 608-year-old tradition.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I heard
wow.
that.
And we get to actually see it, no matter what our faith is or isn't, we get to bear witness to history. That's remarkable.
That too. Yes.
Wow. Although I will say, I did think, as cardinals, they're all in these rooms. Each one's assigned a room, or they pick it by lottery, and it's a simple room. And I get the premise, but it's a simple room with a simple bed and maybe a chair. I'm like, you guys could have splurged just a little bit. And I know they would say that is not the point, but really.
It is. Yeah, that's true.
That's so true. I think when someone witnesses something like that too, regardless of what your faith is, I think that just gives you a sense of connection into even your own faith, right? Like just look at this connection and look at these people, and
Right.
I think it's a good humanity thing for people to see and tap back into myself.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is, yeah, and this is a very important figure. I think what fascinates me is this figure goes literally overnight from being, okay, fairly high up in the church, but overnight from one of the masses to that. That's a pretty impressive jump.
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah,
Oh,
and
there
big
was
responsibility, right? So,
Yeah,
my thought.
yeah,
Yeah, that was my thought.
yeah. And that's something I think that touches into on the front page of my website. The first question is, how big are you willing to be? In order to become the Pope, you've got to be pretty darn humble to begin with. So, humble doesn't always mean avoiding the spotlight. Sometimes it means standing in the spotlight.
mhm.
Yeah.
And that's another thing just to kind of be aware of. This is wow, you're about to lose all rights to your privacy. Kiss it.
Right.
You're Earth's property now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
That
Yeah.
is very true. Well, and I like the tradition too, as well. Like you said, like, right, it just shows that we can have these traditions and move them forward, right? And
And we don't always want to destroy all tradition. Sometimes it really is like, wow,
yeah,
wow.
well, it's either, in awe of it, or what can we learn from it, or there's so many different things. And I think just, abolishing all kinds of traditions and things that have happened, it's like just sweeping it under the rug, and pretending it didn't exist.
You're
I
also
feel
losing the
like,
magic.
yes, and there's
Yeah.
lessons
Yeah.
to be learned from everything. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like we should. I'm not saying that everything needs to continue on, but I think that we should still have some, I don't know if respect is the right word, but we need to have some awe of what has happened
I
and how
like
far
awe.
we've moved.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I also like the word awe because it just allows us to go, wow, wow from a very deep place. And we need some of that.
Yeah,
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
me too. And I
Yeah.
think that goes in hand with gratefulness, right? Is finding this awe in our life. Like, and when you find the things that you're grateful for, you can be in awe.
That's
I had
right.
my niece said to me the other day, sorry, she said to me, how do I teach my kids? Because I said to her, awe is actually a very distinct emotion. It is a very distinct emotion. And she said, how do I teach my kids that? I said, it's easy. Just ask them where their wow is. So go find your wow.
Yeah, I think that's a great message for everybody. So, well, it's coming to an end of our interview, and it's been so awesome
Oh,
having you back on because we love spending time with you. You have so much information,
likewise.
and so I'm going to ask my favorite question. What would be your final message to everybody if you had one?
Yeah, I would say take time tomorrow to find your wow, to watch with respect, no matter who you are, and a little bit of reverence, and to find the awe and the gratitude that makes you grateful for just being you.
Good
Love
one.
that. Yeah, that's a wonderful one. And where can everybody find you?
At judywilkins-smith.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, all over,
All the socials.
all the socials, and through my books.
Right.
Yes, in your
And
book.
just so pop in your name and whichever social they're on, it will come up, and your books are on Amazon.
Absolutely. Yes, books are on Amazon, books are on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble, and yeah, and the meditations are on my website. And what else? Oh, and
You want
then
to
my
give us
events. My events. I'm doing the live one actually Yeah, I'm doing a live event at Disney in October, October 9 through 12, and that is teaching breakthrough DNA. It's
Oh,
moving
beautiful.
beyond your limitations.
Like that.
Wow. So
And your
did you
book
get
was
to share?
wonderful. I got it, and it was wonderful. I read the
Yeah.
hidden powers in your DNA, and it was beautiful.
Yay!
So thank
Thank you.
you. So thank you for being with us for another time, and we hope you'll come back another time and
Anytime. You just
share.
ask me.
Oh, perfect.
It's
So
always fun to be with you two. And happy Mother's Day to the pair of you.
yes,
Yes,
and
thank
to
you.
you as
Same to you.
well. And to
Same
all
to
the
you.
followers that are mothers, happy Mother's
Yep,
Day to you.
you bet. You
And
bet. Yes.
we will see you next time.